Right. Hello and a warm welcome back to the channel of nonsense. I say warm, it's freezing cold outside. I'm not going riding out there today, but I have got some warm news to kind of moisten the cockles of your bits. It is news from Husqvarna of the updated Svartpilen and Vitpilen 125 and 401. Not the 250 because that has been updated, but we don't get it in the UK, so blah. This video is going to tell you what you need to know in about 5 minutes. Let's go. Now, if you're not up to date with Husqvarna's small capacity roadsters, the Svartpilen and Vitpilen are these kind of cool, funky bikes that are quite similar in essential concept to the KTM 125 and 390 Dukes. They first came out back in 2018. In my head, that is yesterday, but actually that's the same year that Stephen Hawking died. And I don't actually ever remember seeing him in the same room as either of these Husqvarna bikes. So I'm not saying they caused his death, but maybe at some point he shuffled off this mortal coil doing a dank wheelie on a Husqvarna 401. He didn't, don't sue me Husqvarna. But anyway, these new bikes, they have got all new frames, new engines, a few new bits and bobs, they're Euro 5 compliant, and they've got new prices. They're about £4,900 for the 125 version, £5,600 for the 401 versions, which makes them a couple of £100 cheaper than their KTM counterparts. So yeah, let's get into it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with these bikes, they're very similar, the Svartpilen and the Vitpilen. The Svartpilen is the slightly more scrambly bastard of a bike. It's got more bent handlebars, a slightly more upright riding position. It has got a two-piece seat. It's got spoked wheels. It's got slightly knobblier tyres. They're Pirelli Scorpion trail tyres, which are a really good tyre. You don't even get those on the KTM 1290 Super Adventure. You get some of Mitas rubbish. And the Vitpilen is the slightly more cafe racer one with a straighter bar, slightly more length forward riding position. It's got cast wheels, it's got a one-piece seat, and those cast wheels, by the way, have got Michelin Power 6 tyres, as we saw last week on the new Triumph Daytona 660. But the aesthetic look of the bike is fairly similar. The big news is a new LED headlight with a nice bright ring around it, LED daytime running light. It just makes them look a lot more modern than the old bikes. Now, in these photos, you can probably see a few other little differences between the two as well. The Vitpilen has got an almost aerodynamically enclosed front mudguard, whereas the Svartpilen's got a smaller one, but it does cover the fork stanchions to give you more off-road protection for your suspension. And yeah, do you want to do any minor urban off-roading, I think they call it, you want the Svartpilen. That's the one you want to take down a cheeky gravel trail or something like that. Whereas the Vitpilen is the one you want to put up outside Starbucks if your hipster beard and your bald head and... oh, that's the one for me, isn't it? A few other aesthetic differences between the two. The Svartpilen's got a little fly screen, whereas the Vitpilen hasn't. And also on the Svartpilen, you've got what looks like a tank bag ring around the fuel cap. That's actually made of metal, so you can put magnetic tank bags on it. It's the one that you want to take touring, supposedly. Now, in terms of engines, they are new, apparently, in the 125 and the 401. As I said, we have seen them already in the updated 2024 KTM range. However, it is worth covering. They've got all new cams, all new pistons, new cylinder heads. They're Euro 5 compliant. They've got new exhausts. The 401 is actually a 399cc single with 45 horsepower and 49 newton meters of torque, which sounds pretty punchy, whereas the 125 is obviously limited. It's only got 15 horsepower. However, both of them do get proper 6-speed gearboxes that have been revised to be slicker shifting, like sticking your willy in some lure pack. They've also got easy shift system. It's not really a full quick shift blipper, but it's designed to allow kind of easier upshifts and downshifts without using the clutch. They also have slipper clutches as well. So if you're relatively new to biking, being on a big single, you can shift down a load of gears and dump the clutch out without locking the back wheel up and pooing yourself, like I did in the early days of my biking career without slipper clutches. Oh, and in boring news, the engines. There's a 6,200 mile oil change and a recommended 12,000 miles until you have to check the valves and the spark plugs. Now, as I said at the start of the video, the chassis is new as well. There's a new slightly trellisy frame that's been tweaked and tuned to give it more nimbleness while still feeling stable at higher speeds. And yeah, you've got non-adjustable WP suspension on the 125, slightly more adjustable suspension on the 401. As I said, I'm not covering the 250 in this video because we don't get it in the UK. It's actually got less high spec stuff on it than the 125, which is a bit weird, but there we go. Both bikes get a single front disc with bi-brie brake calipers, a kind of decent radial job that looks pretty chunky, to be fair. And you've got a new aluminium swing arm on these bikes as well. The seat height for all of them is 820mm. I can't remember if I said that the seats are interchangeable between the Svartpilen and Vitpilen, but they are. So if you kind of prefer the seat from one to the other, you just have to buy the seat from the other bike and you can put it on and it won't be a bother. Now I'm going to stick the weights up on screen here because they do differ between the Svartpilen and the Vitpilen, and between the 125 obviously and the 401 version of each bike. But basically they go from about 148 to 150 something kilos. They're not particularly heavy bikes. Now in terms of electronics, there are actually some quite nice touches on these bikes. There's all new switchgear, which actually looks quite nice and a lot nicer than some of the switchgear, I would argue, on the KTM 890s. You've got backlit switches as well, which is something I don't think you get on the new BMW GS, which costs about £18,000. So well done, Husqvarna, for that. You get quite a nice looking 5-inch TFT screen on all of these bikes, on the 125 and the 401. You get a slightly naffer screen on the 250, and on the nice screen on the 125 and 401 you can connect your phone, so you can do turn-by-turn navigation and all of that kind of good young person stuff. I just use a sat nav, but I'm an old man, what do I know? You've got cornering, traction control and ABS on the 401 bikes, which is mega, really good peace of mind out on the road, especially on British greasy roads. And you've got cornering aware ABS on the 125. No traction control on the 125. If you're spinning up that rear on a 125, then, well, it's probably snowing and you should try and stay home or get a car. But anyway, that's about it for my quick wrap up and canter through what's new on the Svartpilen and Vitpilen 125 and 401s. I've managed to say the words just about in the right order. There are some other things I've not mentioned. There's a USB-C charger on both bikes. You've also got street and rain riding modes, definitely not looking at my notes now. And you've also got Supermoto ABS on all of them, so you can lock the back wheel if you put it in Supermoto ABS mode, which is great if you're taking a Svartpilen off-road. But yeah, the bikes are available to order in the UK pretty soon, and I think they look really good. I've not actually ridden the Svartpilen or Vitpilen, but I'm reliably informed that a Svartpilen 401 is a mega bike for just dicking around on British roads and also green lanes as well. So I'm looking forward to riding them this year. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Go down there and leave us the Husqvarna-ish word for easy shift bum. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Hopefully next time I speak to you, I'll actually be outside on a real motorbike, not crashing. Goodbye. Have a lovely week. Cheers. Cheers.